5 revolutions from circa 1750 to circa 1900. Between 1750 and 1900, people continued becoming more integrated into a global trade network. New technology from machinery for spinning thread to locomotives to telegraphs to steel mills fostered close integration. The increased use of machinery in producing goods, a shift known as the Industrial Revolution, caused manufacturing output to skyrocket. It began in Great Britain and affected all of the world by 2000. The Industrial Revolution set the stage for dramatic changes in international relations, polities, and demography. Foreign power. As global trade increased, industrializing countries protected the access of their businesses to resources for manufacturing and to markets for selling goods by establishing control over overseas lands. However, these lands often rebelled against foreign domination. Among the first to rebel were the United States and Haiti in the 18th century. A new type of country, industrialization, provided the background for reorganizing states. Before the 1800s, most people lived in large multi-ethnic empires or small homogeneous kingdoms. After 1800, people increasingly lived in nation-states, a country in which everyone shares the same culture, and everyone who shared a culture lived in the same country. Breaking up empires and combining kingdoms to create nation-states frequently led to war. Movements of people. Industrialization was also the context for massive human migration. As demand for labor shifted, millions moved in search of work. For example, many Europeans voluntarily resettled in the Americas and Australia. South Asians were coerced into taking jobs in southern Africa. Millions of Africans were enslaved and taken forcibly to the Americas. These movements diversified communities across the world. 5.1 The Enlightenment. As empires expanded and trade routes led to more interactions, intellectuals in the 17th and 18th centuries, such as Descartes, began to emphasize reason over tradition and individualism over community values. These shifts were called the Enlightenment. The ideals of this movement, such as individualism, freedom, and self-determination, challenged the roles of monarchs and church leaders and planted the seeds of arguments in the United States, France, and around the world. An age of ideas growing out of the scientific revolution and the humanism of the Renaissance. Enlightenment thought was optimistic. Many writers believed that applying reason to natural law would result in progress. While not denying the existence of God, they emphasized human accomplishments in understanding the natural world. Such beliefs led to the conclusion that natural laws governed the social and political spheres as well. While traditional religion did not disappear, it became less pervasive. New ideas emerged about how to improve society. Schools of thought, including socialism and liberalism, arose, giving rise to the period called the Age of Isms. Opposing socialism and liberalism were the current of all conservatism, particularly popular among the European ruling class. All of these isms are defined later in this topic. The clash between new ideas and old political structures led to revolutions that had two aims: independence from imperial powers and constitutional representation. The breakup of empires and the emergence of new forms of government often followed. These developed out of the concept of nationalism, a feeling of intense loyalty to others who share one's language and culture. The idea that people who share a culture should also live in an independent nation state threatened to destroy all of Europe's multi-ethnic empires. In the 17th century, Francis Bacon emphasized empirical methods of scientific inquiry. Empiricism and is the belief that knowledge comes from sense experience. from what you observe through your experience, including through experiments, rather than relying on reasoning about principles provided by tradition or religion. Bacon based his conclusion on his observation of natural data. Hobbes and Locke, the same century philosopher Thomas Hobbes, author of The Leviathan from 1651, and John Locke, author of two treatises of government from 1690, viewed political life as a result of a social contract. Hobbes argued that people's natural state was to live in a bleak world in which life was nasty, brutish, and short. However, by agreeing to a social contract, they gave up some rights to a strong central government in return for law and order. Locke, on the other hand, argued that the social contract implied the right, given the responsibility of citizens to revolt against unjust government. Locke thought that people had natural rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of property. Another of Locke's influential ideas is found in an essay concerning the human understanding, in which he proposed that a child was born with a mind like a blank slate, tabula rasa, waiting to be filled with knowledge. In a world in which most people believed that an individual's intelligence, personality, and fate were heavily determined by their ancestry, Locke's emphasis on environment and education shaping people was radical. The philosophies in the 18th century, new group of thinkers and writers who came to be known called the philosophies, explored social, political, and economic theories in new ways. In doing so, they popularized concepts they felt followed rationally upon those of the scientific thinkers of the 17th century. Taking their name from the French word philosophy, philosopher, these writers include Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin from America, Adam Smith from Scotland, and several French thinkers. Of particular importance to writers of the new Constitution in France and America in the 18th and 19th centuries were the ideas of Baron Montesquieu. His famous work, The Spirit of Laws, praised the British government's use of checks and power because it had a parliament. Montesquieu thus influenced the American system, which adopted his ideas by separating its executive branch, the president, from its legislative branch, Congress, and both from its third branch, the federal judiciary. Francis Mary Arouet's pen name Voltaire is perhaps best known for his social satire Candide. He was famous during his lifetime for his wit and for his advocacy of civil liberties. Exiled for 3 years due to a conflict with a member of the French aristocracy, Voltaire lived in England long enough to develop an appreciation for its constitutional monarchy. In regard for civil rights, he brought these ideas back to France, where he campaigned for religious liberty and judicial reform. His correspondence with heads of state such as Catherine the Great of Russia and Frederick the Great of Prussia, and his extensive writings include articles in Diderot's encyclopedia, are still quoted today. His idea of religious liberty influenced the U.S. Constitution. A contemporary of Voltaire was the writer Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who expanded on the ideas of the social contract as it had passed down through the works of Hobbes and Locke. One of Rousseau's early works was Emily, or On Education, in which he laid out his ideas on child rearing and education. A later work, The Social Contract, presented the concept of the general will of a population and the obligation of a sovereign to carry out that general will. An optimist who believed that society could improve. Rousseau inspired many revolutionaries of the late 18th century. Adam Smith, one of the most influential thinkers of the Enlightenment, was Adam Smith. In his book, The Wealth of Nations, Smith responded to mercantilism by calling for freer trade. While Smith did support some government regulation and saw the benefits of taxes, he generally advocated for laissez-faire, a French phrase for leave alone. This approach meant that governments should reduce their intervention in economic decisions. Smith believed that the government, businesses, and consumers were allowed to make choices in their own interests. the invisible hand of the market would guide them to make choices beneficial for society. His ideas provide a foundation for capitalism, an economic system in which the means of production, such as factories and natural resources, are privately owned and are operated for profits. Deism. The Enlightenment's emphasis on reason led to some thinkers to re-examine the relationship of humans to God. Some adopted deism, the belief that divinity simply set natural laws in motion. Deists compared the divinity to a watchmaker who does not interfere in his day-to-day workings. These laws could be best understood through scientific inquiry rather than study of the Bible. Despite their unorthodox ideas, many deists viewed regular church attendance as an important social obligation where people receive moral guidance.